Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Roast into Ceilings podcast. Today we have with us a special guest, Amy.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Amy Hager. I'm located in Virginia and excited to be on today.
Virginia is all the way on the East Coast, right? How does it feel over there?
Yeah, we're starting to get fall. I tried to have a fire in my fireplace because it was just chilly enough this morning. And so I think winter and the cold weather is going to be here to stay. We'll get like a warm day randomly, but I think we are officially into sweater weather season.
I love sweater weather.
Hmm.
We're Canadians, so we're always cold. I'd love to hear about
This
that.
year, though, I feel like this year temperatures are
Very good point. Very good point.
well. We were so excited that you were able to come on today because for all of you guys, Amy has a very impressive and extensive career history, and there's just so many little bits of it. I don't even know where to start. Amy, where do you want to start explaining your whole life journey here?
Well, it's just so funny because my yoga instructor will always introduce me as the lady who's lived 12 lives already. And so, Maggie, I totally understand what you're feeling right now. And so I'm gonna say let's go back to younger days. Like as a child, I ran a business. I basically, I raced go-karts. And I learned at the ripe old age of 9 how to walk up to an adult
Wow.
and tell them what I was doing in this world, why it was important to them, and why they should give me money so I could buy tires and have gas.
Mm.
I'm interested in that. I don't think a lot of 9-year-olds really have that type of passion when they're at that age. I'm really curious, how did that start? Was it like a parent that did go-karting? Did it just kind of come to you?
So my dad was very much so into cars and racing, and I think really before I could walk very well, I had a little snowmobile, the little Arctic Cat, no, a kitty cat snowmobile is what it was, and
Oh.
it's small, like it's definitely made for like 3 and 4 year olds, and I don't know what it was. I just always grew up loving going fast, loving being in the car, being on the snowmobile. Riding the lawnmower was a super big treat when I was younger. And so when my dad was like, "Hey, let's get you a competitive racing go-kart." I had already had like a yard go-kart that I had definitely ran into the tree and like wrecked a
Oh,
few times.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I ran over the neighbor kid one time too in it. And so I was like, "Yeah, this sounds great." Like, and I didn't even consider the fact that I was a girl and this was going to be a boys' sport until I got there and I was like, "Oh, duh, I am the only girl." Like, it was just a unique experience. I'm thankful for that type of childhood. I think it definitely taught me how to speak to adults, how to just go about and do whatever my little heart desires and have no fear. And once I had hit middle school and high school, I remember going around to the elementary schools and going to third graders and talking about, you don't have to wait till you're an adult to do something big in this world. And I didn't know what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I thought I was going to race cars for the rest of my life, and then life happens and that didn't happen. But at that time, like, that was my plan and my passion. And I think as we change and grow as humans, our plans and passions change, and that's a-okay. And it is very interesting now with social media and Facebook. I mean, that stuff wasn't around when I was racing. And every once in a while, someone will be cleaning out like their basement and they'll find a news story in the newspaper about me and take a photo of it and share it on social media. And it's
Wow.
like, wow, like I don't even know who you are because a lot of times, I don't know all the fans and all the followers. But it's really cool to have it come full circle, I guess, and just reconnect with that part of myself.
It's especially cool to me that, before it might have been a little bit harder to find those connections for your business. well, now maybe you can reach out to people through Facebook or Instagram,
Mhm.
but that is another layer of networking and connection that you're able to do.
I'm telling you, social media is a game changer for networking and connecting. I mean, yeah, I literally would either have to ride my bike around town or my parents would have to take me everywhere, right? And now it's just like at the click of a button, I'm meeting with two ladies from Canada, right?
Oh,
It's just so different. And racing led me into an early career in radio, and we needed a youth group or something for kids to do in my hometown, so I helped start one when I was 14. And part of the fundraising plan was to challenge the local radio DJ to do a go-kart race against me. And I'm 14, I'm tiny, maybe 90 pounds, and this dude's huge. He's like a 400-pound man. And so we just looked funny out there racing. But it was really cool. He's like, "You have a knack for this." He's like, "If you want a part-time job, like we'll hire you." And so I started doing sports broadcasting on Sundays and Mondays and Fridays. And I would just call into the station before I'd catch the school bus
oh my
and give my perspective on
Wow.
what happened over sports over the weekend. And it led into becoming a full-time radio DJ and really loving that. And again, another unique way to really build community, build connections, and just gain followers that I'd never be able to meet in a million years.
That's so cool. And I had a question more pertaining to what you were talking about having to like market yourself and pitch yourself as like
Mhm.
a young go-karter. You mentioned how you were like one of the only girls out there. Was it
Yeah.
harder to pitch yourself to like sponsors and teams and stuff saying like, "Hey, I know I'm like a 90-pound not like child, but
Right.
do you think you could give me some money so I could afford a mechanic?" Like, do you
Give me
think there
some
was
cash. It sometimes it was, and I think the one thing that I always knew is I never was going to have the best of the best equipment. And so I had to really rely on my driving skills, but really rely on my personality to attract fans. I didn't win every race. I did win a regional championship, which I don't know that if there is any other girls have won this regional championship before. And, competed on a national level, but again, there were not a lot of girls out there. And so it did take some convincing that, yeah, girls can do this. And I have ups and downs just like any other boy out there racing. I think the sponsors that I had, I raced for over a decade. The ones that I had stuck with me through every single racing car class that I did, from go karts all the way up to NASCAR. And I think they saw that I was a great community builder. I was always going to represent the brands who sponsored me to, the fullest of my ability. And, they didn't have to worry about some scandal or something bad happening, right? And so I think really them trusting me as much as I trusted them and just building those deep relationships. And I remember one year, I had wrecked and we needed more money. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to finish the year out. So I went back to them and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry this happened. Like, one, I can't help it. Wrecks happen in racing. But two, like, we don't have enough money to replace the parts. Will you give me more?" And just the worst answer they could say is no. And just knowing that if that's the worst that can happen, what happens if they say yes? And I really think sometimes as adults, we really think too much about the no and not about the possibility of a yes. And in learning that again so young and as a child, and not being scared to ask for what I want in this life or what I need in this world really put me in a different position. But I do think you bring up a good point. Like, yeah, there were times that I had to bust the whole gender myth of, well, girls can't do this, or you're not as good as the boys, or whatever it may be. But I think the people who really deeply bonded with me and built that deep connection with me, they were with me for years.
Hmm, that's really cool. I'm like that's actually very interesting that you said that they took you from go-karting all the way up to NASCAR. Like I know that's like a journey that like a lot of people will never like be able to experience all the way through
Right.
and have like the same sponsors the whole way. That's like almost like a familial connection at that point, surely.
Yeah,
It's like
it truly is. And I don't live in the area that I grew up in, and so I've lost contact with quite a few people, but anytime I am in town and I bump into them, like it doesn't matter that it's been 20 years. Like, it's, you just pick up from where you left off type situation. And I think the other thing too that was really impressive that I learned early on is these were all small business owners. It's not like they were, the Walmarts of the world or whatever it may be. And so they knew that if they invested in someone who is going to make their community better, that helped them in the long run too. And I worked quite a few other jobs throughout my community, besides radio, and just being able to have that connection. And I think being a connector of humans is part of my
Mhm.
superpowers. And if I can't help you with the problem, gosh, I know somebody that can. And so by being able to be that resource to them, even when I was super young, I think really showed a lot of what my future would eventually turn out to be, which I'm still doing the same thing. I'm massively connecting people. It's nice again that we have social media to do this.
Mhm.
And it doesn't always have to be in person and boots on the ground, but also it's kind of fun when it is.
Mhm.
I really love what you said about mindset too earlier back about thinking what would it be like if they say yes rather than say no. That is really powerful to me.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard I have a big like issue with like thinking like, oh, what if they say no? What if they say no if I get rejected?
Yeah.
I remember one time I heard like a quote a long time ago. It's like, yeah, what if they say no, but then the yes could be like a billion times better than you think. So I think
Right.
like what you're saying like helps reinforce that idea of like the no really doesn't do anything. It doesn't take you back
Right.
anywhere, but the yes can bring you so much more. So I'm like glad to see that there's actually real life examples of this, and you're saying like, yeah,
Yeah.
this works. This mindset is real. This mindset helps you get places.
It totally does. And now I help people with their marketing and their messaging, their organic marketing and messaging. And one thing that I always say is you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person, but you can't say anything if you don't say anything. And so if you just hold back and sit there and be silent, that doesn't even give you the opportunity to say the right thing to the right person. And by not holding back and just listening to your heart, you can never go wrong with it. And yeah, there's going to be ups and downs and not like rainbows and unicorns, right? We're not on fantasy land, but you won't know. You really won't know unless you go for it. And really, if you do believe in the you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, I think that's a huge shift for you as well.
Hmm. I had a question about that. So, do you think that the marketing world has been kind of going in a different direction now? Because I know you're talking about super like being organic and being real to like the right people, but I know now that a lot of marketers are just trying to push like we're gonna try our best to say the right things to everyone, and even if it isn't you. So, do you feel like
Right.
that's going to shift?
I would say and again, I feel like I've been doing marketing now forever because I had to do it when I was a kid, and that's basically what I've been doing as a career for my entire life now, one way, shape, or form. I would say that I'm seeing a huge shift where you're right, Maggie, that like you just try to say the right thing. And I don't know that people necessarily want to always hear the right thing.
Hmm.
They really want to hear something that speaks to them. And so when I'm working with people on their marketing, when you can make such a deep connection with somebody who's reading your post or listening to a video or watching something on YouTube or seeing you speak from a stage or listening to a podcast, when you can speak to them and it feels like you're actually speaking to them, like they're like, oh my gosh, Amy is looking me in the eye and I really feel everything that she says. Or if you feel like they are speaking directly towards somebody and you're like, oh, I've got to connect my brother Bob to Amy, you're doing something right. And so if we're trying to speak to too many people, if you're trying to speak to everybody, you're not giving someone that chance to feel so loved or so heard in what you're trying to say that they can't just raise their hand and be like, oh my gosh, that's me. And so when you can really get really small with your marketing and messaging because you want to really touch the heart of one person. And when you can really master that craft, I think that's when your marketing is going to land the best. And that's when you're going to build those stronger relationships. You can have consumers that just buy from you because whatever, it looked pretty, it sounded good, and they didn't have the best experience. But if you have someone that has that very heartfelt personal experience with you, they're going to tell other people. And it's more likely to build that referral and that stronger network than someone who just like bought something quick off the shelf because they liked the color or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that a lot of younger people are struggling to build those genuine connections nowadays. So I
Yeah.
really love to hear kind of the advice on how we can start doing that as a community, for sure.
Like, I know nowadays that the idea of networking or just the word networking has been diluted down a little bit. Like, some
Yeah.
people would just think like, oh, I'm gonna press the add button on LinkedIn and now we're
Yeah.
connected and now I have a network. So I think bringing
True.
back the idea of like an actual like a network where it's a bunch of people where you can connect everyone you know is really interesting, because again, like, this word has just been so like twisted and turned where it's not really like valued anymore.
Right. And I think people just have such a bad taste in their mouth about quote unquote networking. And it's just like, I've got to go to this networking thing and hand out my business card and meet as many people as I can. And I think if you go in with an intention of, all right, I'm looking specifically to meet with some sort of collaborator who I'm going to be able to teach a workshop with, or someone who can introduce me to the local college because I want to be able to speak on one of their stages, or, the local hair salon owner because you you want to get in with them, you basically tell your therapist and your hair salon or your hairstylist everything. So who knows, right? And so I think by going into networking, and I'm using that term very loosely, with intention and purpose and having a really, really clear ask. I want to meet hairstylist or the local hair salon owner, or I want to meet someone at the college. And if you can go in with such a super clear question like that, and why do you want to meet the hairstylist, or why do you want to meet the person at the college, and really tell your story that way, again, you're helping people think really, really small and not, again, their Rolodex of business cards or their 500 people that they're friends with on LinkedIn or their followers on Facebook. You're really helping them hone in too to build those quality connections for you. And instead of then going back to your office and emailing everybody you got a business card from and saying it was great to meet them, like, yeah, of course, we're humans. It is great to meet other humans. But when you can really, really add value to someone's day or someone's life, that's where the game changer happens.
Mm. So I really like that idea of adding value, because I know, again, you talked about how you've been marketing your whole life, and I think everybody I've talked about marketing, they've always said like the major thing is you gotta talk about how you provide value to someone else, how
Hmm.
you what your value is. But I think just the idea of like everyone does have like a value. You just gotta find who's like which value is the most like valuable to you. It's
Right.
just super,
And
yeah.
Maggie, I think you're also thinking down the path of you're not going to be the right person for everyone, right? Like someone else is probably going to value you more than another person for whatever rhyme or reason that may be, right? And I really also love to talk through of sometimes we get too wrapped up in value and benefits when we're talking about ourselves or products and services. If you can really think of the transformation or the experience that someone's going to get by interacting with you or a product, that also is a huge shift because you can tell me about benefits all day long and I'm still not always going to see the value in it. But if you can really paint the picture for an experience or a transformation, that's what we're really, I think, wanting as humans and really craving to have is those types of interactions, transformative and experiential.
That is so cool. That's to think about that, because sometimes when people think of marketing as self, they're like, "Oh, you're just trying to sell me this. You're trying to sell me this brand. You're just trying to sell me this name. You're just trying to take my
Yeah.
money and like manipulate it." Which I think like you're trying to battle with this whole organic marketing idea. Do you think you could tell us a bit more about what organic marketing means? Because we were looking on your website and it said this term a lot, and we're wondering if you could go in depth about it.
Yeah, yeah. So organic marketing is really going to be messaging and efforts that you are doing in-house. So whether you're a solopreneur and you're the only person in your business, or maybe you have a team of 5 or even 500, And what I say is when you can use organic messaging, whether it's on your social media or in your email list, or if you're speaking on a stage or on a podcast or something, when you can start getting people to be in conversation with you, because I think that's what your goal of marketing and messaging is to get people in conversation. Conversations is what sells people, not marketing. And so, if your goal of conversation in your marketing is achieved and you're having conversations, that's when you know your organic marketing is working. And then, if you want to go do ad buys and whether it's Google ads, Facebook ads, newspaper ads, radio ads, go for it. But until you can have those conversations, really stemming from you and your original efforts, and you're having quality conversations that are actually converting into clients and customers, you're just wasting your money on paid advertising. And I also really, really believe until you can get your messaging either as the solo business owner or as the main, team of an organization, until you can really get that messaging working for yourself, do not outsource that. You're giving away your power, and your power to really showcase how you're different, how you're unique, how you create those transformations or experiences. Someone can't pull that out of you and do it for you. It really is something that you've got to dive deep and create on your own, and know that it's going to change and grow as you and your business change and grow, and as you as a human change and grow. And so it's like you can't just do marketing messaging once and be like, all right, I did it, it's done. Because eventually it's not going to work anymore either. It's not going to feel in alignment. It's not going to no longer be up to your mission and your vision or your standards, and it's going to shift. So when you get the chance to learn how to do it and how to do it well organically, you're giving yourself that skill set for a lifetime.
Thank you so much for that. I really love that interpersonal connection piece of it. Like you, both Maggie, Amy, you were saying that a lot of times today, networking and building that connection in marketing, it's seen as like clicking a button
Yeah.
or posting something. So definitely, we need to remember that it is about the other person on the other end of the screen or other end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's so true. I think sometimes we forget about the other person on the other end.
Mhm. And you mentioned like businesses and like business startup, and I know that you have your own business about like teaching people like these like ideas that you shared with us. Were there any like challenges with starting your own business? Because we're high schoolers, we have not yet started businesses, so we're kind of wondering
Yeah.
what the process was for that. Was there any difficulties, any like solutions there?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think we fall out of alignment with when we pick a business is we start getting too much thinking about the customer and not enough about ourselves. And so make sure that if you are starting a business, one, that you love the idea that you're doing. Otherwise, it's just a job. And it's okay to have just a job, but that is a completely different mindset than, when you're pouring your heart and soul into something. And so if you've chosen something that isn't lighting you up, that doesn't, bring a smile to your face, or when you talk about it, you can light up a Zoom room, you may want to reconsider what your business is. So focus more on how best you can provide your gifts to this world, and know that the clients and the customers will come. Don't overthink about trying to fit a need of an ideal client or customer, because you don't have an ideal client or customer yet. You haven't worked with anybody. That happens as you get to work with people, right? And I love when, we have experiences and we're like super jazzed about it, and then you're like, "Oh my god, that was not as amazing as I thought it would be." And you learn, all right, these were the characteristics, these are the things that I didn't like about it, these are the things I don't want to do again. I think your I don't want to do again list is so much important, and almost as equal as important as the list of things I do want to do. And again, by knowing the difference between that through experiences, because that's the only way you're going to learn whether you do or don't like something, and just continuing to build on that, knowing that it is okay if you're, starting out and you're wanting to work with veterinarians, and for whatever rhyme or reason, as you get into it, you're like, you know what? this actually, I want to work with the front desk staff people at vet clinics. Then you only know you can say that because you've had that experience of whatever it was that you didn't agree with veterinarians, but you know you still want to stay in helping animals, and you can explore that other path. Like I do think the days of like having a career at a company are going by the wayside because we are wanting to find more joy in our daily work and in what we're bringing to this world. And I don't think there should be anything wrong with that. If you're in a job and you're like, you know what, I suck at this job, that's okay. Glad you figured it out. Now go find something else to go playfully experiment with, right? So I went to school to be a journalist. So while I was in radio, I was in journalism school. And one of the first jobs I got outside of radio and outside of graduating college was at a paper. And I love the interview process. I love the research process of a story. I hate writing the story. And I was always like the reporter that was getting my articles submitted like late or barely on time. And I couldn't figure out why. And part of what my company, what we do at the Joyful Business Revolution is help people uncover their content personality type. So if you're listening to this, go Google the content personality quiz, take it really quick, see what your results were. But when I first took this quiz, it said I was live in person. And I was like, thank God. That makes so much more sense. Like if written would have showed up, I would have died. And I don't know how many bosses have told me over the years, I need to go back and like get better writing skills. And I'm like, well, do I really? What if we leverage my awesome live in person ability and we have a teammate who's really great at writing and who's a writing content personality type and they can pick up that slack? And so I think by really leveraging your strengths and being okay with letting some of your weaknesses go, we don't always have to be improving ourselves and figuring it out how to make ourselves better. That's a huge shift that we really, really focus on at the Joyful Business Revolution. And one of the things I think that really makes us unique in how we teach and talk about marketing is if you can leverage your strengths and let your weaknesses go. I'm curious what would shift for you. So if you're starting a business, remember, think about yourself. You need to be happy. You need to enjoy this thing so that you can give all your gifts to the world. And then when you're diving into like marketing and talking about your business, know what your content personality type is and be okay with just leveraging that type for now and add on as you add team on to really support those weaknesses that you're just not naturally good at, and that's okay.
I really love that you talked about nurturing what you're good at because I think a lot of people are trying to be the most well-rounded person there is, but
Mhm.
really we need to nurture our peak, and that's so true.
Yeah.
And I think that Maggie and I will be taking that content quiz later
Oh, definitely.
today.
I was waiting
Oh, I can't
for
wait.
that.
Yeah.
But Isabel, what you said is like, I think really like factually correct, especially now, because I know a lot of our peers in high school are in that university application era already, and they're
Mhm.
talking about how universities want the most well-rounded student. They want
Yeah.
A's in all subjects. They want all the extracurriculars. They want all the sports, and they're kind of letting go of like their peak, as you mentioned, where they have like one spike. So I
Yeah.
think it's really interesting to kind of bring back like the hey, it's okay to have a spike. You don't need every single thing to be
Right.
spiked.
Right. And again, like there's value to having multiple experiences to figure out what your weaknesses are versus what your peaks are. And you're only going to find that out through experiences. But I agree. Like when you are applying for colleges or even, I'm not a big fan of standardized testing either because it's just trying to make you be all of these things. And even when you're looking for jobs, I hate it when a job description says you have to be a great writer, and especially in the marketing industry, you have to be a great writer. You have to know how to use Canva or Photoshop. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know how to do video. You might have to go speak. And so you have to be a good public speaker. And I'm just like, that's asking way too much of one person to be good at all of those things. And so, yeah, tap into your team and really work on your strengths, work through your strengths, and let other people cover your weaknesses for you. It's okay.
Thank you so much for talking with us today, Amy. I really appreciate it. I feel like we learned so much from this call, and
I
so
could
our
not
audience
wipe
probably did
a
too.
grin off my face the whole time. Everything you said was just so impactful. I can't even pick one thing to kind of highlight, but I just think it's super interesting how, like, again, you said you've had like 12 lives, but every single one you managed to connect it back to like connection and to
Yeah.
people and to just like being able to like connect and establish something with others. So I think it's super interesting how you mentioned how all your experiences had led to that one kind of theme throughout your life. So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was super fun talking with you both.
Do you have anything you wanna plug and shout out while we're
I
here?
mean, seriously, go take the content personality quiz. Even if you're not going to own a business, even if you're not in marketing or messaging, even when you think about the best way for you to be communicating, if you're a live in person person, great, do it live in person. If you're written, you can write emails and text messages. If you're audio, pick up the phone and call somebody. And if you're video, usually that means you don't have to have the energy of another person. So it's okay to shoot a video. And our visual people, that's the fifth content personality type, they're usually really creative. They're artists. They're great at Canva graphics and things like that. So maybe creating a fun visual letter instead of picking up the phone and calling somebody will be your way. So I think if you get a chance, Google content personality quiz. You can go to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com and find it there. And if you are thinking about starting a business, reach out. I would love to be able to talk about easy first steps just to consider as you're going down this path.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be
Thank you,
checking all those
Amy.
things out. And just thank you
Awesome.
for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.